Hey guys, Chris here. Today I have a story about a man who goes on a day hike in Olympic National Park. He's a very experienced hiker. He ends up going missing under very strange circumstances, and then unfortunately it turns very tragic. That's next. Okay, so for today's beer, we have a Sierra Nevada Torpedo IPA, extra IPA nonetheless, and that I dropped in a creek on my hike here today. Caught a beautiful waterfalls, and found a nice cool place to do a story here. Oh yeah. That is good, nice and cold. So this story takes place in the state of Washington in Olympic National Park. Just a beautiful, pretty amazing national park. In fact, it's got to be one of the most, if not the most diverse national parks in the national park system in the United States. It's got wild coast, rainforest, high mountains, lakes, rivers, just incredible wild country. And the rainforest there, the whole rainforest, gets 140 inches of rain a year. And most of it falls in the wintertime. Really good sized national park. It's 922,000 acres, almost 1 million acres of land. Established in 1909 by Teddy Roosevelt as a national monument. It was over 100 years ago it was set aside, and then became a national park by Teddy's cousin FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 1938. Just incredible country. And this man named James Griffin, who disappeared under very mysterious circumstances, and that's what we're going to talk about today. He was a very experienced hiker. In fact, he lived in Port Angeles, Washington, which is just right outside the park, just north of the park. Very experienced hiker, single guy, retired, loved the outdoors, knew the area really well. And on December 22nd, 2014, James went on a day hike to the Olympic Hot Springs, which is an unmaintained natural hot springs in the backcountry in Olympic National Park. It's about a 2.5-mile hike. Not a really very long hike at all. It's on a relatively smooth trail. It's called the Boulder Creek Trail. He parked at the Boulder Creek Trailhead, hiked in. It was rainy that day, December 22nd and the 23rd. It was rainy that day. He spent the afternoon there at this hot springs, soaking, relaxing, hanging out. And it's not a very big hot springs. It's maybe 8-9 feet long, 3-4 feet wide. People have put rocks up to contain the water. And at about 4 o'clock, 4:30, according to people that were at this hot springs that day, they were the last people to see him. He left to head back down the trail to his car at the Boulder Creek trailhead. And that was the last anybody had ever seen of him. So James was reported missing on December 24th, Christmas Eve, when he failed to show up for a Christmas dinner with some friends. They were very concerned about him. He didn't show up, so they called the police. And the police quickly put together a search and rescue operation that consisted of the OMR, which is the Olympic Mountain Rescue Group, and they are a volunteer organization that helps find people, search and rescue on the Olympic Peninsula and in the state of Washington. They also had the State Department of Emergency Management, which had search dogs and their handlers. Also, there was 10 people from the park, as well as friends of James that were helping in this operation, and his dog Bud was brought in to help out as well, which would make sense. So the very next day, the search and rescue operation started, and this was December 25th now, Christmas Day. Lightly raining, and they're searching this country in the Elwha Valley along this trail. Very steep, dense forest. And at some point during that day, December 25th, they found his day pack leaning against a tree 50 feet off the trail and a half a mile from the trailhead, the Boulder Creek trailhead. Carefully laid across the top of his day pack was a towel. Obviously he went to the hot springs, so he had a towel. Inside the day pack, they found a stove, a camera, food, water, snacks, and some fire starter. On the camera, they were hoping to find some clues. There was just a few pictures of a waterfalls. Next to this day pack, just carefully sitting there against this tree, there was a log. On the log was an open can of Coke sitting on the log. Next to that was a plastic coffee mug. On the ground, next to this log, sitting upright, was a prepared freeze-dried meal in the bag, like a mountain house kind of thing. It had been partially eaten and then it was sealed, but it was prepared. So he obviously was there and just pulled off the trail to have a little meal. But there was no sign of James anywhere. In fact, there was no signs of struggle. There was no, obviously, signs of a bear ripping into the pack and disturbing the scene. It was just nothing. There was just no James. So this search and rescue operation went on for about a week or so. After they found this scene without James in it. A lot of rain that time of year. Gets dark really early. Really steep terrain. Dense rainforest. It's pretty incredible how thick these rainforests can be, obviously. It's a rainforest. And people continued to search for him, friends and other people. And on January 25th, they found James Griffin. They found his body. He had passed away. Turns out he was about a third of a mile off the trail and 1,000 vertical feet straight up from where this camp was, with the backpack, the day pack. pretty crazy, 1,000 vertical feet straight up. So that means that he was preparing his meal and then something happened that either scared him, made him want to leave his camp, or he got disoriented somehow and just went straight up. There was no talk about flashlight, headlight found with him, found on him. That would indicate that he could see. Obviously, he could see well enough to cook a freeze-dried meal. Carefully places some of his gear out on this log. It was the shortest day, one of the shortest days of the year, December 22nd, when he was last seen, and most likely he perished that night, was one of the shortest days of the year, so he had enough light to hike down and then go off the trail and cook this meal. But then he was found a third of a mile away and 1,000 feet up. So something happened. The police said there is nothing to suggest anything other than someone who lost his location and couldn't find his backpack again, where he stepped off the trail and became lost and disoriented. That kind of makes sense, but he obviously could see really well to come 2 miles down the trail, only a half a mile from his car. And then it had to be dark when he was cooking this meal. So what happened to James at that point? There was a moment where he decided to leave and then he couldn't find his way back. But he had enough light to see, whether it was a headlight or a flashlight, to see and cook. The autopsy showed he died of hypothermia, which is really simply he froze to death, and it got cold enough there that night, wet enough. And hypothermia, all hypothermia means is your body loses heat faster than it can generate it. You get wet, you get cold, and now you need a fire, you need something to get going. He had fire started in his day pack. How did he become separated from his day pack and decided to hike that far away from it and just leave everything? The autopsy also showed there was no alcohol or drugs in his system, suggesting that he was of a right mind. He wasn't drunk and on drugs, walking around the woods. I'm kind of moving the camera around. The light is chasing me around here. So the family was really grateful they found James. Obviously, tragic loss though. But at least they got some closure on what became of him. But the question still remains, what really happened out there? James was an experienced hiker, backpacker, outdoorsman. He was a local. This hike was something he's done many times before. Relatively simple hike, easy hike. I think would be considered an easy hike. 2.5 miles, but it's very level trail and it's in a steep country. But the trail is just a 2.5 mile trail. James, obviously something happened to James. Not sure. I really want to hear from you guys what you think actually happened to James Griffin while he was out there. He clearly had enough light to cook and prepare a meal and be very organized, and then something happened. Did his headlight go out and he suddenly became disoriented and he panicked? Did something scare him away, have him go uphill? Somebody mentioned that when you're lost, you seem to have more control when you're going uphill as opposed to going downhill. I don't know what that really means. Maybe search and rescue people could tell me what that means. But I could relate to James. He loved the outdoors. He loved hiking. He was comfortable in the outdoors. Didn't make a lot of mistakes, but he didn't tell somebody exactly when he was going to return. That would have been helpful. Maybe leaving after dark or near dark, December 22nd, one of the darkest days of the year. You're heading out after dark, and I guess I should talk. I've hiked after dark in my videos. I got a clear route back to my vehicle. Usually it's a lot shorter than you guys think when I do my night videos. I'm doing less of those, as you can tell. But I want to hear from you guys what you think may have happened to James. Not an easy situation, but at least they did find his body. So, all right, you guys, thank you for watching. I appreciate you watching my channel. And if you do like stories about the strange, unexplained, and things that go bump in the night, please like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. And as always, keep hiking.